Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. A lot of stuff going on in the world around the NBA preseason, getting into full swing. We've got a lot of news topics to dive into. Joining me, as always, is Keith Smith. You can find him on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, how are you doing?
I'm good, but I don't think we can say as always when you have other guests that aren't me on the show. I mean, what's up with that? I know I committed adultery and went off and went to another a couple shows, but you can't replace me in the family. That's not really
Keith, I
fair.
would
But hey, shout out Jake Fisher, great guest, good get for front office show. Jake has been killing it
yes.
on breaking news all off season long and into the preseason, and I imagine will continue to kill it breaking news. He's done really, really well. He's been all over a handful of different
Yeah,
topics.
he's done a fantastic job. He did come on a little bit ago. I'll admit it. I'll come clean. I had him come on, and we did a little something for front office. We also did some stuff for Lakers Nation, so that's Lakers specific over on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel. But we talked a little bit of Ben Simmons here. I will say though, Keith, I saved the Simmons siren for you. Did not use that, so that is something that is still sacred. Did not use that and save that one just for you.
That means a lot to me. It means that our bond is still strong, and there's still a foundation that we can rebuild from.
By the way, I mentioned this before. We just a little peek behind the curtain here. I mentioned this before we went on that my daughter was going to join us for this one. She's in the room, but I told her she couldn't be on camera. But I can see because I've got a mirror here in front of me. I can see she just did all the way across the room like a full, I don't know, like John McClane style side roll. As he's shooting the gun. She doesn't have that, but as she did the side roll all the way across the room underneath the view of the camera. It's like a little spy
Nice.
action here from a five-year-old. I was pretty impressed.
That is pretty good stuff, man. Because I can tell you, she didn't pop in the frame at
That-
all. I wasn't able to see her, so that's good
That's
stuff.
pretty impressive, and could also mean I'm in big trouble in the future. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of professional basketball. We've got the Wolves have been associated with a Ben Simmons trade.
Hold on.
Uh-oh. Oh, the Simmons siren.
The Simmons siren
The Simmons siren
has
is,
to
is
go.
here.
There it
Yeah, we do
is.
have the latest Ben Simmons news here. The Wolves ownership group is bullish on a Ben Simmons trade, and we've been linking them to Ben Simmons for a while now. But the Wolves apparently are a team that could wind up being a real landing spot. And if the new ownership group is really pushing for him, maybe that does give them the incentive to put D'Angelo Russell into the deal in the hopes of getting it done and combining Simmons with Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, John Krasinski of The
Mm-hmm.
Athletic had all of these details, and there's nobody closer to that
Yeah.
Timberwolves organization than him in the media. He's all over everything that came out of there. He touched on Sachin Gupta had worked under Daryl Morey, so there's already a relationship there that the two of them can get after and will work with things there in the like. So yeah, and he did mention that they'd prefer not to trade D'Angelo Russell, but are willing to if necessary. So we'll see. It seems like most people think this still has to be a three-team deal, where some other team is sending value in terms of now players towards the way of Minnesota. But we'll see. I mean, it's this has been one of our favorite fits, I think,
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning with this, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they are willing to make a deal and include D'Angelo Russell, I could see that making sense for the 76ers. But I mean, this is the type of thing that will have to change in order for a deal to get done, right? In combination with the
Yeah.
76ers demands maybe coming down a little bit, a team kind of saying, you know what, we really want this guy. And I do think it's also interesting that this isn't coming from the 76ers. This is the type of story that's positive for the 76ers, but it's not coming from
Yeah.
them. This is coming from the Wolves side of things. So I think that makes it even a little bit more noteworthy.
Yeah, and Krasinski didn't use like kind of vague
Yeah.
terms. Like he said, the Wolves are bullish on him. They want to be at the head of this table. They know they don't have the pieces to give to Daryl Morey that are immediately going to help him win a championship. Their hope is that he is pressed into a corner, maybe would take a draft pick heavy package that he could use then to go get Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal. So that is very interesting. He also added that Karl Anthony Towns and Ben Simmons have been on good terms. So that's clearly an important thing as well. That is going to matter quite a bit here. So let's keep an eye on this. It's a we'll keep sounding the Simmons siren as long as we need to until there is a deal to be done, and we hope that that will eventually be soon.
So, Keith, just to move on to our next topic here, we've got this weird kind of three-team situation that went
Yeah.
down, and I told you ahead of time, Keith, you need to explain this to me because I'm trying to make heads or tails of exactly why some of these teams, like where the benefit comes in. The Rockets are waiving Kyrie Thomas. Edmund
Yep.
Sumner from the Pacers and a second is going to the Nets.
So let's do it in
Okay,
order.
let's do
It's
that.
gonna
That's probably the best
play
way to
out
go about
because I
it.
think that'll help maybe clear it up a
Yeah.
little bit. So the Rockets, you're absolutely right. They waived Kyrie Thomas. He was on a fully non-guaranteed deal. He was somebody who popped towards
Mhm.
the end of last season with the Rockets, and then they really liked him. But as they really filled out their guard rotation over the course of the offseason and then added Jalen Green and some other guys, there's just not really room for him there. So he gets waived. So that opens up a roster spot on their 20-man roster. So they're going to use the James Harden trade exception or the vast majority of it. It's about 3.6 million of the 5 million or so James Harden trade exception to acquire Sekou Doumbouya from the Brooklyn Nets. And if you remember, the Nets had acquired him from the
Yeah.
Pistons in the DeAndre Jordan swap. So now what will happen is they're going to send cash back to the Nets and they're going to get a pick from the Nets, a future second round pick from the Nets in order to eat Doumbouya's trade. So essentially, what the Rockets did here was they bought a second round
Right.
pick, if you want to think of it that way, because they are going to waive Sekou Doumbouya. So we'll come back to that part of it. Then what the Nets are going to do is they're going to create a $3.6 million trade exception for Doumbouya because they're trading him with no salary coming back. They're going to use that to acquire Edmund Sumner from the Indiana Pacers and a second round pick, which in effect replaces the second round pick that they lost by salary dumping Doumbouya. Now they are also going to waive Edmund Sumner when they acquire him. He's out for the year due to a torn
Right.
Achilles, so he's not going to be there. They traded the draft rights to Juan Pablo Valle to the Pacers. He's a guy who was drafted several years ago. Is probably never going to come over
Yeah.
to the NBA, but something's got to go. So why did the Nets
Yes.
do this part
That's
of the
what I
deal?
need.
Yeah, they save about 6 million actual dollars doing this because they are so far over the luxury tax that they've tripped basically all the penalties you can trip now. So this saves them about 6 million actual dollars. And considering Doumbouya probably was going to have to fight his way onto the roster, I don't know that he was going to make it. This frees up now a roster spot to keep DeAndre Bembry. He becomes increasingly more important for them to keep. He's a player they like. They gave him $750,000 guaranteed this offseason. And part of the reason I want to keep him is, which we'll get into in a bit, they're still uncertain with Kyrie Irving's status, and Bembry gives them another ball handling, playmaking guard that can help fill out their depth chart because this Nets team, they're not going to push James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie, when and if he does play, overly hard just because that's not what they really want to do. They know the goal is to win a championship. So they want to have more of those ball handlers and playmakers. And that's probably the one place that you could point to that they might be a little short on this roster, especially playmakers with size outside of clearly the superstar guys. And then it's probably Bruce Brown is the only other guy. Why do the Rockets do this? To get a second round pick. We already covered it because they're going to waive Doumbouya. And then the Pacers part of this is they were basically right at the luxury tax line. This pushes them far enough under. They're going to sign Brad Wanamaker. There's a good chance Brad Wanamaker makes that roster out of camp. He may take the spot that Edmund Sumner was going to hold down on a guaranteed contract, and they could use maybe another guard depth. And if they got involved in a Simmons trade, it's likely that one of their ball handlers, probably Malcolm Brogdon's, going to move out in that trade. So this gives them another veteran at the end of the bench, but mostly it gets them clear of the luxury tax line a little bit more. So kind of fun, chained together 3 transactions. Wasn't they? You thought they might do this as a 3-team trade. They didn't end up doing it
Yeah.
that way. Just would have made it one more unnecessary complication. But for the most part, these teams all did accomplished goals in this move. Most of this was about clearing salary, luxury tax room, and the
Well,
like.
and that makes it look. I get the reason why the Rockets would do it. I get the Nets saving some money when you're sending Dumboya to Houston. I get the Pacers saving a roster spot, right, and sending out Sumner. Why do the Sumner piece from the Nets part of it just to replace that second round pick when you're already paying the luxury tax? Wouldn't it have been better just to not do the Sumner part of it and just say, okay, we're good?
Yeah, it could be, but you want to have second round
Right.
picks
Okay.
if you're the Nets. You want to have as many draft picks as you can because remember they're pretty draft pick poor from the Harden trade.
Sure.
So you'd like to have those picks if you can get them in, and they saved a good amount of
Right.
money. They, from my understanding, talking to folks there, they're not overly concerned with the tax bill. I mean, they've got one of the richer ownership
Mhm.
groups in the entire NBA, but this was a chance to knock off 6 million off it. Why not? Get it done, and this way too. Waiving Edmund Sumner is a little bit easier to swallow because you end up kind of even swapping
Mhm.
for all intents and purposes with Demboya, because with Demboya, it almost looks a little bit like, hey, you're waving this guy who was nearly a lottery pick. What are we doing? Shouldn't we keep him
Right.
around? And then it's easier to say, hey, we're waving the guy who's not going to play at
Sure.
all this year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. From an optic standpoint, it definitely makes more sense to do that. Uh, and then we've got, you mentioned it, the Nets. There's waning optimism now. We had heard there have been some rumblings that, okay, maybe Kyrie Irving will end up getting vaccinated when, push comes to shove. But now that optimism is waning that he will indeed be vaccinated. So that
Yeah.
puts the Nets in a really weird spot. And I wonder what kind of appetite they have for dealing with this situation all season long. I'm not suggesting they trade him or anything like that, but this is going to put them in a difficult position if that's indeed the way this plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. In reporting from Adrian Wojnarowski and Brian Windhorst of ESPN, there is now a thought of what is the Nets' plan if he doesn't get vaccinated. It doesn't seem like they're overly thrilled with the idea of just play the
Yeah.
41 road games. They pointed out in the article, go read it on ESPN if you haven't seen
Hmm.
it yet. That one of the things that's pointed out is the Nets pretty early on in the season have a 6-game homestand, which means essentially for 2 weeks, Irving will be away from the team because he can't practice either with the team. He can't be in the facility when other people are
Allen
there.
Iverson's dream
It,
come true.
yeah, right. It sounds like he is doing his own thing too. Steve Nash kind of talked about that today during their media availability that he's working out on his own away from the team entirely because you can work it out for him to be in there I think with one other
Yeah.
person or something like that, or they could have sent somebody to work out with him somewhere that's not in New York, but that's the reality of it. Is it sounds like he is you know they're now, like you said, they're not as sure that he's going to get vaccinated, and they're not sure that they really want to move forward with this whole idea of let's play, just in road games, which is a complete oddity as
Yeah.
well. So, lot more still to be decided in the less than 2 weeks before opening
So is
night.
that hinting at maybe he just doesn't play? Period. I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't
that's
know.
kind of what's,
I
and I know it's
really,
speculation at this point, but that's just kind of
yeah,
the way that was what I took from it is like, is that
could
something that's
be.
really on the table?
Yeah, one of the parts of that piece too was, and we've heard this is they feel like they're a title contender with or without him,
Hmm.
and it's, I mean, clearly they're a much better team with
Yes.
him, but they're already a pretty good team without him too. So, we'll see. And again, that's part of why this idea of having DeAndre Bembry is so important because you just need depth at that guard position, especially if you're not going to have him there. So now it's also interesting timing that this comes out. And then almost on the heels of it, Michelle Roberts did an interview with Stephen
Yeah.
Bondi of the New York Daily News, where she said that they haven't agreed to the reduction in pay, which was widely reported that both sides had agreed. And she said there's reporting on it that we didn't. Their position is that we can. We'll see if we get to that point. We'll see what
Mm.
happens. Is kind of where she left it. Just so everybody knows, Michelle Roberts still running the Players Association for now. She is the outgoing president of the PA, but she's still in charge for now. So yeah, it's very it's a very interesting position on this. Is what does it look like with this, and clearly there's a lot of stuff going on here, and right now it's San Francisco and New York that have those requirements to have at least one shot to be part of large indoor gatherings. It sounds like Los Angeles is now gonna head down that
Yeah.
same road. We'll see what that means. I believe the Clippers and Lakers, they were either at or on track to be fully
Yeah, the
vaccinated.
Lakers will be.
There was some buzz going around though that may hold true for visiting players as well in LA, which the San Francisco and New York language does not account
Mhm.
for. So it's very confusing. And the reality is, we're probably not going to know until we actually get there and we really find out, a few days out of all right, who can and who can't play right now in these markets. So just it's I'm almost personally, I'm starting to treat it like I've got to watch for it, just like I got to watch for injury
Yeah.
updates to see what it looks like as teams are headed into those markets.
Unfortunately, that's just the way things are at this point. It's going to be a story. It's going to be something we're going to be keeping an eye on, particularly with a name like Kyrie Irving that is kind of at the center of it. And we also have to remember Kyrie Irving, vice president of the Players Association. So that could be a factor
Yeah, I
in those
want to be
negotiations as
clear on
well.
that because I see that people say that a lot. He's one
There's
of
there's several of
several
them. Yes.
vice
Right.
presidents. He's also like Grant Williams of the Celtics is actually the actual vice president. He is one of the I forget, it's like executive vice
Mhm.
presidents or something like that, and there's like 7 of
Yeah.
them. But title or not, Kyrie Irving holds considerable power in the Players Association and with his fellow players. I mean, we saw he was one of the influential voices on should they play or not
Yeah.
in the bubble, and there were definitely guys who were with his line of thinking on that. So we'll see. Last piece on this that I wanted to hit because I just thought it was newsworthy. I thought it kind of skipped over.
Mhm.
Michelle Roberts said she thinks the number of unvaccinated players will be down to a dozen
Wow.
in the next couple of weeks. So that's something that we ran the math for you guys when this was all going on about a week or so ago, and said it's really not as many people as it sounds like it could be. And then now we know a handful of guys, Andrew Wiggins and a handful of others, have started to the process of getting vaccinated or are now vaccinated, and it's going to be down to a dozen or so.
Well, that's great. That's fantastic news for the NBA.
Yep.
And yeah, that tells you that as much as this is a story, we're also talking about a very small segment of the NBA's players.
Yep.
We have a few signings. Frank Mason III lands with the Lakers on a training camp deal, not eligible for a two-way contract because he already has 4 years in the NBA. So pretty unlikely that he sticks around, but they're bringing him in to give him a look and give him a little bit of run in camp. Tyler Hall.
Yeah, he's probably headed to South Bay.
Yes.
Following preseason, he'll be there, and then he'll be looking for a 10-day at some point.
Yeah, that's exactly what he'll be doing. Tyler Hall lands with the Knicks. And then Denzel Mahoney, an Exhibit 10 to the Spurs. So we talked about this, how there's going to be a lot of these kind of training camp style deals that are going to be coming up right around this time of year. And that doesn't mean these guys are getting roster spots. I still see people that are fans of that particular team. What do you mean? I don't even know who this guy is. How is he getting a roster spot?
Yeah.
Calm down. They're not. That doesn't mean they're getting a roster spot. It's just for camp. And this is what happens every year.
Lining guys up to get them to the G League. That's the process for the next couple weeks or so. Here will be a lot of let's get guys in position to get them to the G League. Well, I shouldn't say a couple weeks, week and a half, really, because it's at the end of next week. Rosters need to be, let's say, finalized in air quotes there, because rosters are never truly finalized, but as much as they can be. I think it happened after we recorded yesterday, but just in case we didn't talk about it, the Orlando Magic picked up their 22-23 team options for Cole Anthony, RJ Hampton, and Chuma Okeke. That is, that was a lot to
Yeah, no
happen for all
surprise.
three of those guys. Anthony Hampton, big parts of the future. And they really like Okiki too. It's important to remember too with Chuma Okiki, he is on. That is his second team on, or his first team option rather, for him because he signed a year later than some of the others did. So that's important to note because remember he was drafted, sat out an entire year, and then signed a year after he was drafted. So he's right in line with all the rest of those guys. So the Magic taking care of some expected business there, and that's the other thing we're going to be hearing a lot of between now and October 31st is team options being picked up.
Yep. And so far, I don't think there have been any surprises as far as those go. It's been pretty much what you would have expected.
Yep.
But well, I mean, at least we've got basketball on now. Preseason play, sometimes it's sloppy, but it's still fun as we get close to the start of the regular season. Exciting time around the NBA. Keith, I think this was another good breakdown of what's going on around the NBA. And hopefully we'll get even more people subscribing and then turn on notifications as the regular season starts up.
No doubt. Like those videos too. We didn't get to the preseason games last night. Just it was a lighter night. Not a whole lot to take away from that, but we will get back to that. And the reality is, we got to go watch some basketball because for me here on the East Coast, we've got Lakers Suns at a very nice 6 p.m. start time on the East Coast here, and good for those two too for moving the game start for the WNBA playoff game for the Mercury. And it just slipped my mind who they're playing. But it's that's cool that they did that. For them and doubleheader too. I think they said they've got a lot of fans that they think are going to stick around for the Mercury game after the Suns Lakers game. So Lakers guys playing tonight. Do we know?
Yeah, no LeBron, no Westbrook, no Dwight Howard. And no Trevor Ariza. Trevor Ariza is an ankle issue thing, though. But Dwight, apparently it was going to be either Dwight or DeAndre Jordan. We're going to sit out this game. They decided it was going to be Dwight. Lakers starting Anthony Davis, though, at center. So we'll see. We'll get a look at that. And Carmelo Anthony also in the starting lineup.
Well, it's a shame that they just don't value Anthony Davis the way they should, making him play in these preseason games. It was cool. I read the comments from him that he wanted to play. Yeah. That they didn't want him to play, and he felt like last year he wasn't in great shape to start the year and those kind of things. I thought that was pretty neat. Reading those, I read some of the stuff from I want to say it was Johan Buha. Had some really cool stuff from the Athletic about Davis, just his mindset being a little bit different this year. So I think that's little scary for the rest of the NBA if he's really ready to go. I think he's going to have an absolutely monster season. This year, I think you're going to see him on the receiving end of a number of assists from Russell Westbrook.
Well, I'm certainly not going to disagree with you on that one, Keith. And
we'll close it out there.
Yes, we're going to close it out on a Celtics fan complimenting the Los Angeles Lakers. I think that's a great spot to end things. I appreciate everybody joining us. Make sure you do subscribe and don't forget to turn on those notifications and like this video as well. Till next time, stay safe and see ya.